What about maybe promotions where you are now? Okay. Anybody on that MVP track that you want to, I want an MVP. Okay, all right, okay. Well, good to know. So what does that look like? When we talk about personal branding, these buzzwords, the marketing folks love them. Everybody kind of throws them out there. But what does that even mean, personal branding? So the example that I like to use is, let's say somebody's birthday is coming up. Who has a birthday coming up really close? Anybody? Okay. Well, I'll just pick on Christy. So Christy, let's pretend it's your birthday coming up. We're friends. I'm like, you know what? I had such a great time. You did such a great job at Southeast Streaming. I'm going to get you something. I know you're a tech person. I'm going to get you a gadget. And let's say I bring Christy her gift, and it's in a Radio Shack bag. She's going to thank me, and she's going to say, oh, this is nice. Thank you. Let's say I brought her something in an Apple bag. It's going to be like, oh, thank you. Why is that? It's because the brand that those companies have established, they've integrated an expectation. So I have an expectation when I interact with Radio Shack. I know it's going to be, pretty affordable and possibly, and they sell a lot of the same, they sell Apple products at Radio Shack, but that's not what I think about. When I think about Radio Shack, I think about kind of, dark gray stores. I wouldn't even know where to find one in like strip malls. Just, their branding is not high end. When I think Apple, I think sleek packaging. I think expensive. I think all the cool kids are using it. So those are things that they've infused deliberately to have you think about their brand in a certain way. So when we talk about personal branding, we're talking about the exact same thing. What is it that people expect when they interact with you? When they talk to me, they know I'm going to have a bunch of jokes. I'm going to be vivacious. I'm not a, wallflower. That's my personal brand. Are you kind of like that brainiac? Are you kind of like the subject matter expert and you're just kind of, tapping away at your computer? Like, what brand do people have? What's the expectation? So that's what we mean when we say personal brand. And so the things that you can do to shape that are through the tactics that we're going to talk about today.
I'll accept gifts from anywhere.
Okay. Radio Shack, Walmart, okay. So what is the point of this? Why are we trying to deliberately shape and affect our personal brand? Number one is reputation building. So we've heard your reputation perceives you. Number two is perceived expertise. For people who don't work with you on a daily basis, they don't know what you're capable of. The only way that we know what you're able to do is whatever you showcase to the world. I had a conversation with Mike Gerholt, and he talked about how in the Salesforce community, he's a rock star. We all know this, but at his company, they're like, you? Like, people know you? And they, like, why? Because they just know him as the Salesforce admin, so he's toiling away at his desk and doing all these great things that we appreciate in Salesforce, but the company didn't place a high value on that, and it wasn't very visible. So it's the way that people are perceiving your expertise, you have to kind of drive that. Social proof again. So a lot of us are on Twitter. Maybe we have different people that we're tagging, shouting out on Twitter. What does that mean? If they're responding to us, you see somebody interacting, you're like, oh, she knows that MVP, or oh, they interact with this guy at this company. They must be pretty plugged in. And then, of course, competitive differentiation. So the person who you Google and you find all of these blog posts or you see them speaking or what have you, compared to an applicant or someone who's just like, oh, I know Salesforce. It's just a little extra factor that puts in your favor. So one thing that people ask me all the time is, do I have to blog? I don't really want to blog. I'm not really into blogging. And the answer is no. You need to know what your style is and what fits your personality and what your commitment level is going to be. So if writing feels like torture to you, don't commit to start a blog. Don't do that just because other people have blogs. Maybe you're a little bit more engaging. Maybe you'd be great on video. Maybe you're a speaker. Maybe you are a visual person. Yesterday I met a young lady who's a graphic designer, and she does Salesforce. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool, because you can create infographics based around Salesforce. Nobody has that skill set, to put out there. So that's really, unique to you. And it already takes advantage of who you are and what you do and what your natural inclination is. Maybe you're a connector. Maybe you're a networker. Maybe you're somebody who always has a great resource. That's you. Okay. So that might be your way to differentiate yourself, is like, I'm the go-to woman. And where are you from?
Orlando.
Okay, so you're the go-to person in Orlando. If somebody wants to, get a Salesforce candidate, if they, are looking to implement something, I'm the go-to girl. I can connect you. I know all the vendors. I know that might be your personal brand, and you just showcase that. The other thing people are always asking is, what do I talk about? I don't have anything to talk about. That's not true. We all have something to talk about. I'm sure there's some topic that you hit on that we could talk about for hours. So a couple just kind of ideas to throw out for you are interview series. I know there's quite a few folks in the Salesforce ecosystem who have successful blogs around interviewing other Salesforce users, particularly Girly Geek of the Week. That's Lauren, Lauren Jordan's. Which is how I know a lot of the people that I know outside of Atlanta, just from being on that interview series. And I mean, she has the same questions, and she has her add-in that she does, but she's not creating new content. She's just finding people, identifying them, and sharing them with the world. If there are new features, there's always going to be opportunities for you to break down how you apply that in your role. Case studies, things that you've done successfully at your company, tips, tutorials, those are always great. Pain points, so what are the things that just kind of drive you mad? You can always talk about those. Best practices. I was just having a conversation with Mike here from Salesforce about how there's not a lot of information on agile projects that use Salesforce. So that's a content area that I can talk about to establish kind of some norms and some best practices that isn't currently out there. What's it called? Okay, so I'll definitely look that up. Okay, so you are a connector. She just social proof. There she is. Thank you. Event coverage, so we're all at this wonderful event. Christy's been periscoping. That's an opportunity for you to say, hey, I'm plugged in, I'm on the scene, I'm at Dreamforce, here's my kind of man on the street coverage. And of course, your interests, as those may be. So just kind of hopping in, and really my goal today is to just kind of get the wheels turning. So if you want to get more visibility, I want you to leave with some ideas that, hey, I can do this, I can do that, I can possibly think about that. So just some ways that we share kind of our thought leadership online, our blogs, podcasts, and social media. Blogs. Just diving in, a lot of people, I'm assuming that everybody here is pretty tech savvy and wouldn't have a problem setting up your own blog. But in the case that you aren't, there are a few options. So there are pay-as-you-go kind of platforms like Squarespace, which is a really nice kind of drag and drop website builder that folks are using a lot. Another one that I like is Medium. Which was started by a Twitter co-founder, so it really integrates well with Twitter. And Medium allows you to just kind of ad hoc blog. You can create articles and then link them to your Twitter account. They look great, people can follow you, and you don't actually have to plant your flag and have a URL and your own standalone blog, and you don't really have to go through all of that. So if you're kind of testing the waters, Medium is a great place to start. When we're looking at our blogs, what you don't want to do in terms of content is preach to the choir. What I mean by that is you always need to have an idea of who is my target market, what's my purpose for this. So if I'm trying to get a consulting gig, I'm going to speak to the owners of the firm. I'm going to speak to some of the senior folks. I'm not trying to impress people necessarily at my level. I want to establish that I know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to have in the back of my mind, what are the pain points of someone who has a Salesforce consulting firm? Maybe they don't know how to vet consultants when they bring them in. Maybe this is a new practice area for the firm and they're not really sure what they should be looking for. They just want to go after the Salesforce business, but what should I be looking for? So that would be a great post for me to do, because as me, I would position myself as a expert Salesforce consultant, and these are the things that I bring to the table that you should be looking for in your next consultant. One key is definitely interacting with others. So a lot of people have blogs and they complain that nobody's commenting, nobody's reading them. You have to become engaged in the community. So you have to comment on other people's blogs. Whenever somebody comments on your blog, you have to respond. And just kind of keeping those basic practices is what starts the ball rolling on engagement and interaction. And you're not, again, the goal here is not to necessarily, have this blog with hundreds of thousands of readers. We're talking about a very niche market and very specific goals for you to get to the next level. So there are lots of blogs where they've started really ugly blogs, but they've got great content. And then the next post is, hey, I just got tapped to be a new, admin at this company because they saw my blog. Any questions? Does anybody currently have a blog? Let's shout them out. Who's in the back? What's your blog? SalesforceTidbits.com. Okay. Okay, who else? And I was going to say, there's nothing sadder than getting excited and going to a blog, and the last post was November 2013. So if you're going to blog, be consistent. So it might not be for you if you can't keep up that schedule. And it doesn't have to be daily. You can do kind of a weekly thing. You can do every couple weeks. The key is to batch your posts. So you want to go to Starbucks on a Sunday and just knock out 4 posts and then schedule those out so that you have those in the pipeline and that you don't have to keep feeding the beast and trying to stay on top of that schedule. So who else is, what other blogs? Yes, we're working our way up. Okay. Okay, and what kind of stuff are you talking about on your blog? Okay. Okay. Okay, who else? Yes. And see, I love the fact that you guys are on WordPress. I love this because you don't have to have your own standalone site. I love it. So you all just hey, I'll use the free WordPress. I love it. Oh, see, we knew this was going to happen, right?
I have ChristyForce.com.
Woo!
Posted on WordPress.
Woo!
But it's
Christy Forrest. Yay. Anybody on the side? Yes. thedevadmin.com. And so what are you talking about on there?
Being a developer and admin.
Okay. At the same damn time. Okay. I love it. I love it. So I feel like everybody has their unique kind of topics, and you guys have kind of owned that. So kudos to all of you. We have some networking going on. So if you don't take anything away from this, for everything that we're talking about today, we've all heard the adage, measure twice, cut once. I say create once, promote 3 times. So everything that you put out there, you have to promote it. You can have a great blog and nobody knows about it if you don't share it. So where do you promote that? You can put it on your LinkedIn profile. You can put it on your Twitter. For those of you who are bloggers, you can post, there's a blog group on the success community. Share it within that group. Share it with your user groups locally, in person, as well as online. But make sure that you get the word out. And don't be scared about continuing to post that information, because we feel like we're bombarding people and they already know about this, but people are so busy. They may not have seen your updates. They may not have been on Twitter that day. So if it's relevant, evergreen information, be sure to keep sharing that. Any questions on blogs? Okay. Just checking time.
What's your recommendation on how often you promote that post versus it's a kind of point in time content and also everything?
It's just relevant. So let's say you have a blog about a new feature that was eliminated in the spring 16 release. So you may have blogged about that feature before, and now it's relevant because it's going away. So you might want to re-promote that, and then you have another topic for another post, like what does this mean for you? So you can always kind of keep that going. Otherwise, it's just arbitrary. So maybe every 3 weeks you just want to kind of pre-schedule out some tweets about blog content that's already there. So it's not a hard and fast rule. So podcasts. So maybe you're not a writer. Maybe you're more of a conversationalist. So podcasts are definitely an option, especially for those of us who have crazy commutes, like the ones we have here in Atlanta. Business podcasts are really hot, and you're establishing your credibility and your expertise through this podcast. Just a few tips. Making sure it's added to iTunes. That's primarily where most folks get their podcasts from. I know some people have websites and their podcasts kind of live on the website, and so people have to keep going back and downloading or trying to listen to it from there. So make that easy on them and get it on iTunes. Definitely investing in equipment is going to elevate the production factor for your podcast. And guests are great. So the one good thing about working with guests, depending on the stature of your guests and their following, is that every time you have guests on, they're going to promote that to their audience. So your podcast is going to get traction because you have this guest on and they're co-promoting. So it just kind of attracts more followers to you. Anyone hear podcasts? Any podcasters? Okay. It's something I'm thinking about. So I don't know if I said I'm the user group leader for the online Salesforce business analyst community. And we talked about having podcasts. And so I'm not really ready to commit to a full-fledged blog. But podcasts, I can definitely, get some guests and kind of get that in the queue and have that as a resource for additional information on that topic. Social media. So the thing that everybody is always asking is, do I have to do it? Do I have to do it? Fortunately, I think a lot of us are already engaged, so it's not so much of a arm twisting going on. But if you're not, you do need to be. So for me, I'm not a Twitter person. But when I realized that I was trying to transition and really work on the Salesforce platform, most Salesforce users are on Twitter. And so there are lots of conversations that are going on. In fact, it's almost easier to have a conversation on Twitter than it is to email somebody or try to connect with them on LinkedIn because people are, constantly interacting. Being on Twitter, you can favorite people's tweets, you can retweet them, you can engage with them, and they're noticing your name. They're like, oh, okay, I've seen them, I know their name, they like my tweets, they repost my tweets. So you're really building a relationship that gets you in front of some people that you might not have the opportunity otherwise. High production value on social media. Nobody cares what you have for lunch. I don't. Although actually, I guess it's not true. If you're a food blogger, they do care. If it's relevant, so just make it relevant. So just have an eye to that. I hate accounts where it's like cats and kids, just because I'm not into that. But again, I have different platforms for different things. So I do have a personal Instagram account that I never use. I have an Instagram account that I use I have a stationery business on the side. It makes sense. And that actually leads me into another point about what platforms are best. So when we're talking about the tech community, Instagram is probably not the medium that they're going to be on. Pinterest is not the medium that they're going to be on. Twitter, yes. And of course, as we know, Periscope, because that's a kind of live streaming platform, and there are lots of events, and it makes sense. And the other thing about that is that Periscope is fairly new. So it's really easy to get a lot of attention and eyeballs on you because it's not saturated the way a lot of the other platforms are. Serializing content is just something that you can use across any of the platforms, especially YouTube. That's a really great one to have a series of posts that follow a particular topic. And what that does is it gets people coming back and engaging with your content because they want to know, okay, well, now you've done, this feature and that feature, what's next? So it kind of drives people to stay engaged. Anybody on YouTube here? Anybody do videos? Okay. So we have some veteran bloggers. Offline thought leadership. So a couple of things that people have kind of stepped away from because we are so saturated with social media are old school things like speaking and publishing. So when it comes to speaking, that's something that, of course, naturally I particularly tend to do. But you don't just have to speak in front of crowds like this. You can speak here. You can do webinars. Again, YouTube is pretty much a form of speaking. One thing you want to do is you want to create a signature presentation. What that means is you have a topic that you present on. So this particular session that you guys are in, TechBrand, I actually presented at Dreamforce. So it's my signature presentation. I can take this show on the road. What you don't want to do is have to create a new presentation every time you want to speak. You just want to have something that's kind of in the pocket or a couple topics that you can speak on. And what you want to do with that, it would be nice if people kind of reached out and tapped you, and at certain levels they do. But if you're kind of just starting out, or this is something that's a self-initiated project, you're going to have to reach out to folks. And the way that you do that is by drafting a one sheet. A one sheet is just a kind of breakdown of who you are, a bio, the topics that you speak on, and how to book you, how to, secure you. When we talk about speaking for business, we're not talking about paid speaking opportunities. It's usually understood that this is a promotional opportunity for you, so you wouldn't necessarily get paid. The same thing with writing articles. So if you're writing an article for a trade magazine and you get a biography at the bottom that says, Tony V. Martin is a consultant in Atlanta, you can reach your ad. You usually wouldn't be paid for that. So just have that in the back of your mind. The other thing that I've found is if you do consistent outreach, you get lots of speaking engagements. So I have a lot of friends and you're always speaking, you're always speaking. That's because I'm always looking for opportunities, reaching out to people, sending them my one sheet. And people are very impressed by that because it's all laid out for them. It's easy for them to understand, grasp, get what you have. And you definitely, so my one sheet, I have pictures of me speaking at different events. So I have me in front of the crowd, me at the podium. And so it kind of reinforces, okay, this is what she does. And just if anybody wants to see my one sheet, I'm happy to send that to you guys. Just give me your email at the end. Any questions? Yes.
I would love to see your one sheet.
Okay.
Do you, not visit, do I, how do you get around feeling like you're a one note?
What do you mean?
I love to speak on what I speak on, but I feel like if you've seen me once, then you probably don't want to see me again.
Is that really true, though? Aren't there people that you're like, oh, my God, so-and-so speaking. I got to see them.
Yes. I guess it's a confidence issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you can swap it out. You don't have to, you're learning new things every day. You've got new things, so you don't have to keep, that could be your shtick, and people bring you in because they want you to do your thing. But you can always, just kind of refresh that and keep it fresh and put together a new topic and, new ways, new titles. So it doesn't have to be one note. But the thing is that you do want to own kind of that niche, and people know that you're the go-to girl when it comes to that topic. So that's a good problem to have. If, you feel like I've said this a million times, that means you're speaking a million times and you're getting known for that topic. So I don't think it's a bad problem to have. Any other questions? Yes.
Okay, so I'm not a speaker, presenter, blogger, writer, none of that.
Okay.
Interested in understanding how to develop my personal brand around my career. I may tweet a little bit, but
Okay.
not really. But so how do you get started, or where do you get started in improving your personal brand for my career, or
Okay.
something along those lines?
We're not done. We're gonna keep going. we got more to come, and so we'll talk about that. Some options for you as somebody who's not interested in kind of these methods and strategies. Publishing, just really quick to talk about trade and consumer publications. Right now, kind of Salesforce is not, when you look on Amazon, there aren't a ton of materials out there. That's a prime opportunity for anyone who has subject matter expertise to contribute, because we all have looked and tried to find, some resources, and there just aren't a lot. When you think about other established software platforms, there's tons of books, tons of study material if you're trying to pass a certification. Salesforce is just not there yet. So that's a prime opportunity. Ebook is huge if you're trying to grow your consulting business, or if you work for a company that wants to have that. When people are searching, those ebooks are going to come out, and they're perceived as higher value. It's just a PDF that you've created, put a nice graphic on it, but it's an ebook. So I can say I have a ebook on how to become a Salesforce business analyst. I'm the only person with that. People are going to search that out, and I'm going to be the go-to girl when it comes to getting started with that. Trade and consumer publications, as I said earlier, is just takes a matter of reaching out to editors at trade publications. Consumer publications don't really apply so much unless it's possibly some career things that we want to talk about where people can get involved in Salesforce as a career option. But just reaching out to the editor and letting them know, hey, I have an article I'd be interested in writing. And if you don't have any clips, if you haven't written about this before, you may want to go on and write it out in advance and then let them know that you have that available. The same thing with blogs. Something that I meant to talk about was guest posting. So when it comes to blogs, you don't even have to have your own blog. You can actually guest post on someone else's blog and get attention that way. So there's, I put out a call on the success community for stories of people who've used these strategies. And Adam Olshansky, he shared with me that anybody who follows SFDC 99, David Liu's blog, he recognizes when people kind of take his methods and get their certifications. And Adam got, I don't know, I think it was maybe 5 certifications in 6 weeks, 5 certifications in 6 weeks. David Liu featured him on his blog and just kind of wrote up, hey, this is so great. Adam got lots of LinkedIn connections as a result. People bombarded him with requests, and from that, he actually got referred for a position in San Francisco, which he signed up for. He got that, and then he also got a housing referral. So he didn't blog, he didn't do anything. He just put himself in a position to be found, and this is what happened. So networking, so this is the area that applies for you, Tanya, if you're not trying to necessarily blog or speak or any of those things. So networking is made so easy by the fact that we have the wonderful Salesforce success community with 2 million users. So there's always a way to connect. Yes, I know, that's crazy. And it's so funny because my parents, I tell different people about Salesforce and they're like, what is this? So it's like you have no, on the cloud. And they have no idea that it's so robust. But we can take advantage of that because the user groups are a huge part of getting to know people across the Salesforce ecosystem. So just interacting, we all have our logins, we all have access to it, but actually contributing to groups, answering questions, interacting, congratulating people is a great way to come to the attention of others. User groups, of course, we have local, we have virtual. Our Atlanta user group, Women in Tech leader is Stephanie. She's here and she just became an MVP. But Stephanie actually leads 2 user groups. So leading a user group is a great way to become visible. Co-leading, doing programming within the user group. These are all great ways to kind of get some responsibility that you can showcase. Meetup.com, there's lots of CRM meetups. You can start your own. That's always huge. We have Eric Dreschfield in the room, who started his own user group in Southern Indiana because there weren't any around, as well as started Midwest Dreaming because you couldn't go to Dreamforce, so you brought Dreamforce to you. And so here we sit today as a kind of result. I call him the grandfather of Southeast Dreaming. But this was your idea. This is something that you stepped up to do. And I know that at that first one, Aptus was a sponsor, so you started the relationship there, and here he sits in his green shirt. So I just want to give a hand. So definitely that community piece, it works, so you don't necessarily have to do the blogging and the podcasting. Training, so if you take the stand to promote training in your community, that's a great way to be seen as a Salesforce expert. So I have my friend Mary, she's in the room, and we were recently in a training where Mary Scotton came in and led a training at Girl Development on becoming a mobile app developer. We had one man in the group, and that man, we all walked around, we were rovers, and were helping people kind of, go through the Trailhead, and set up this mobile app. And so the gentleman was impressed with Mary. Thank you. Does anybody have any tissue? I'm like dying up here. But the gentleman was impressed with Mary's expertise, which he got to see because she's hands-on. Thank you. It's just so touching. These stories, they just bring tears to my eyes. Sorry, allergies, all of that. But like I was saying, so the gentleman, was so impressed with Mary's expertise, which she was demonstrating, working with him, that what happened? He told you about a position at his job, or he referred you?
Tour was later that week.
Okay.
He met someone who was looking for a new admin, and he's like, "Oh, you're looking for an admin? Mary's looking for an admin position. Meet." And it was very.
Oh, so it wasn't even his company.
No.
It was, oh, wow. Okay, wow. So just the power of that connection, but him knowing, what she did and who she was, and that made it perfect for him to make that introduction that led Mary to her brand new job. There's also the opportunity, so Annie Scheck developed something called Trailhead for All, where she wants everyone to pledge to introduce Salesforce to their local communities. You can partner with a nonprofit to do that. That's a great opportunity for visibility. And then just finding groups of target people in your market. So maybe it's you want to be a consultant. So you might want to look at small business groups who meet up and talk to them and say, hey, I've got a presentation to tell you how you can implement Salesforce and what that means for your business. So those are just some ideas for that. So just a few success stories that I wanted to share with you guys because I have a ton of them. But Karen Jameson, she does womencodeheroes.com. And so she said she was blogging, she was tweeting, and now she's at Salesforce. That's amazing. Melissa Van Dyke, love her. She has a great blog, and she focuses a lot on processes and things like that. So that's really kind of her go-to expertise. And so she actually got recruited to work at a consulting firm from the visibility that she had on her blog. Adam, I told you guys about. Stephanie, I told you guys about. Stephanie also received the Awesome Admin Award at this year's, was it at the World Tour? Was it the World Tour? Okay. So just a few ways that we can all kind of use these tactics to establish visibility, to let people know who we are, what we're doing. And the thing I'll say, and I want to leave you with, is that it has to ring true. It has to be authentic. It can be calculated, and I think that most of us are starting these projects out of passion for the platform and passion for the people around it. But don't, just kind of, I'm going to blog my way into an MVP, or, I'm just going to tweet until I get a new job. This is really an outgrowth of who you are. And I say, it is who you know, but it's really easy to get to know people. So hopefully the wheels are turning. And any questions before we wrap up? Anyone, Tanya, did I answer your question? Okay. Yes.
You're in a rural community, which I am, and you, I haven't made the leap, but, I'm just starting all of this through a nonprofit, so I'm really a newbie. But if you, are trying to start a user group in a community that doesn't know anything about Salesforce, how do you start making those connections to start a user group?
I think I would ask first and foremost, what is your purpose in doing that? Are there enough people to really support an in-person user group where you are? Because the challenge for you is trying to, kind of drag people out to something in person, and maybe you might want to start virtually, just in terms of logistics. So, and again, it could be a situation like with Eric. There weren't, any regional conferences, so he's like, okay, well, I'll bring one to me. So what's like the nearest city to you?
Well, I'm up in northeast Georgia, so
Okay,
Atlanta is 2 hours away.
okay,
So, and I don't know I guess the nearest city to me would be Gainesville, Georgia. And,
okay,
I have no idea
okay.
if there's any Salesforce folks there.
Yeah, so it might, I don't know, any other thoughts in the room? Yes,
Check with an AE, find out which clients are in that area are closest to you,
okay,
and then, they should be able to give you a list. And then they should also be able to help facilitate you getting up and going making the right connections at Salesforce to get the support that you need, getting you a user group, success community, chatter group going and things like that. So you don't have to do this 100% on your own. So, and then you can also just reach out to, if you happen to know other user group leaders, you can reach out to them. There's a support group for user group leaders.
I love that. Connections. Any other questions? Another something I forgot to mention was Cheryl Feldman's story. I know a lot of you guys know her, but she spoke about how she would go to her local user group and she would do like kind of a walkthrough of different features. Tanya, that's probably something that's really good for you. Just volunteering to present on your area of expertise. And someone saw her at, one of those meetings and approached her afterwards. He was from S&P, and asked if she was interested in a position with them. So she didn't actually have to go and set up a speaking engagement or anything like that. She just kind of shared who she was and what she knew in that format, and people were watching. Yes.
The job I currently have was one that Cheryl turned down.
That's so funny.
Necessary like this.
I love that. And I guess I'm a success story. So again, like I mentioned earlier, I am a kind of career transitioner. And for me, how do I establish credibility? How do I get plugged in? So I definitely got very, very active in my local user groups as well as on the online success community. And through kind of being active, I was able to meet Mary Scotton when they had the launch of Lightning here last year. Mary remembered me when there was a new section created at Dreamforce called the Community Campfire, and she asked that I want to speak. I said, sure, of course. And so I was able to go to Dreamforce, speak there. And so at my most recent interview for the position I started last Wednesday, they asked me, they kept saying, yo, you spoke at Dreamforce? You spoke at Dreamforce? And I'm like, I did. So it's points in my column. They don't know what I spoke on. They don't know if it was 2 people in the room. They don't know. But it stood out to them, oh, you spoke at Dreamforce, and that was impressive to them. So it doesn't take a lot, the things that we're talking about today. It doesn't really take a lot. It just takes deliberate intention and just you to be you. So thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, that was it. The next success story could be you. Like Steve Jobs wants you.